Hey guys, welcome back to the Recovery Lab. This is Coach Mike. Sorry for the absence, haven't put a video up in a while, but we're gonna do another little video today. We're gonna do a product review, a little bit different change of pace. I get this question a lot in terms of like active recovery modalities, you know, what I prefer to use with my athletes and my clients. So today I'm gonna do a little product review, kind of like a compare and contrast from the Marc Pro units, which I really like, as well as the Compex units that are also very available. I like this also for different reasons. So I kind of wrote some stuff up on the board. You really can't see it, so I'm just going to kind of talk you through it. But obviously the industry is starting to shift towards more of like these active recovery methods versus things like icing and ice baths and more of the traditional kind of cryotherapies. And I'm kind of a fan of that for, you know, general recovery post-workout, but I also find a lot of value in these for, you know, rehabilitation, reconditioning, you know, people with some chronic pain issues as well. So I kind of wanted to go over a little bit of the pros and cons of each, why I like them, and then kind of give you my verdict and how I use both these units within my practice in the recovery lab. So I guess we'll start with kind of the pros of each, cons of each, and then we'll kind of get into the way I incorporate these E-Stim, over-the-counter E-Stim devices into the recovery lab. So starting off, we'll start with the Marc Pro. I have both units. I do have the base model, the original Marc Pro, and I do have the Marc Pro Plus. Okay, so these are the two units that they are currently offering, and they're basically the same thing. Obviously, the Plus has one added feature. The things I really like about the Marc Pro is that it's really easy to use, okay? There's basically no settings involved, especially on the base model, which is the one I use a lot with my athletes for just general recovery, you know, post-throwing for my baseball players, post-pitching. I'll use the Marc Pro a lot. I'll also use it like post heavy workouts for some of our power lifters and other athletes that we're training. So I really like this because I can teach them how to use it in a few minutes, and then they can use it on their own. So this is something with Recovery Lab subscriptions that I include for free. So as long as they're an Active Recovery Lab member, I let them use these things every day. We call it the Recovery Tech. So I really like this. It's very easy to use. I give each athlete their own set of pads, and then they can kind of go in there and use the Marc Pro device. The Marc Pro Plus has got that extra high frequency setting, which is really to help treat some pain. So this one kind of gives you a little bit more versatility in terms of how and why you're going to use it. So if I do have athletes that are really, really sore, they have some pain, they get bumps and bruises, I will put them on the high frequency setting. I think the high frequency setting is more of that kind of classic like pre-mod or gate control theory where you're really just like blocking that pain impulse. So, you know, in terms of treating pain, definitely a go-to on the high frequency setting, but I would say that I definitely use the low setting or the original Marc Pro probably a little bit more. It's a low frequency stimulation. It really, I think, is very comfortable. You know, the Marc Pro guys will tell you that they, you know, mimics the bioelectricity that your nervous system produces. And to be honest with you, after using it myself and using it with my athletes, a lot of the guys do prefer this because it's very, very comfortable. As long as you get that pad placement right, you know, you really don't even feel that like tingling sensation. You really just kind of get that nice fast twitch muscle response, which I really, really like. So although the Marc Pro is not indicated for use of like pain or for treating like pain and inflammation per se, I will use this frequently with some of my post-op athletes. For example, right now I have a post-op Tommy John athlete who, you know, right now he's in the sling. He just had surgery a few days ago. I'm not putting this on his elbow or on his forearm flexors or anything that's like directly, you know, related to that injury, but I have been using it on his shoulder. You know, and what I do is like I just kind of help pump out some of that swelling by kind of activating that lymphatic channel, getting his, you know, his shoulder musculature, like his rotator cuff, his upper trap, his pec, and his bi and tri, and get them involved and just kind of keep those fast twitch fibers active and stimulated. And it does a really, really good job of kind of cleaning out those lymph channels. So I really do like this. You know, it might not be a direct on the injury site or the surgical site type of treatment, but it's definitely effective if you use it elsewhere in the body. And honestly, my guys love it. You know, anecdotally, they report to me a lot less soreness, especially after heavy lifting and things of that nature. So I really like the Marc Pro for that. So the Compex unit, kind of in the same boat, you know. I have the base model. This is the Compex Edge. And I think one of the pros to the Compex is that they've got a wide variety of different models that you can choose from. So that's a pro, but there's also a con with that. I kind of think some of the programs are a little fluffy. You don't really need them. I use the base model because it has the two things that I like to do with this thing the most. So it has the active recovery setting, which is similar to the Marc Pro. I find it to be a little bit more pinchy, like you get that tingling a little bit more with these pads. But I really like this because the Compex has 4 leads. I wish the Marc Pro had 4 leads. It's really nice to have the ability to treat multiple areas with multiple pad placements. So this is up to 8 pads, which is really nice. So doing both legs, both arms, you know, different areas of the body, you can kind of cover a lot of ground with a Compex unit in terms of like the active recovery. The other setting I use a lot is the resistance setting, and really the resistance setting is kind of like a over-the-counter version of a Russian stim or biphasic current. Really, it's, you know, what I use it for is neuromuscular re-education. So I will use that resistance setting in my post-op ACLs in like the first week or 2 post-op and having a hard time activating that quad or activating that glute. I'll use that resistance setting for them to kind of aid in that, you know, neuromuscular control and just kind of reestablishing that kind of mind-muscle connection. So I really do like the Compex for that. And, you know, I definitely will use it with some of my Tommy John guys for kind of the same purpose, doing some rotator cuff activation, some scapular control work. That's where the Compex, I think, really kind of shines for that because of these additional pads. Kind of moving on to some of these other pros that we have. I kind of like the fact that the Marc Pro, like these dials, you turn them up and it kind of maxes out at 9. I'm not exactly sure what kind of unit they're using, but it maxes itself out. And some people would think that's a con, like, oh man, I can't get it to get any stronger. But to be honest with you, when I let the athletes, you know, some of my younger high school kids, you know, immaturity, that kind of thing, you know, they get a little bit of a, you know, want to have a contest of who can take the most current. So the Marc Pro is nice because I know they can't hurt themselves. It's really safe. It's over the counter. So I think that's a pro. I don't think, you know, more isn't always better. Better is better. So as long as we're getting that fast twitch muscle response, I'm happy. So that's why one of the reasons I really like the Marc Pro. The Compex kind of has a much higher, you know, top end threshold, so you can really crank this thing up and kind of, you know, get like almost like a tetany response. So, you know, that is good in maybe certain cases, but, you know, in terms of like letting my own athletes put it on themselves and set themselves up, I'm a little bit more hesitant with the Compex on that. You know, with that being said, also the ease of use, you know, this thing's super easy to use, you know, even with the 2 leads, it's 4 pads, you know, so I give them basic pad placement guides for whatever their body part that they're wanting to treat, and they can kind of do it themselves. The Compex, you know, with the dispersal pads, you know, they kind of get a little bit more complicated. So, you know, you have to have, you know, your two snap dispersal pads as well as your, like, I guess your active or anode leads to go with it. So in terms of setup, it's a little bit more complicated, although I have used this without the dispersal pads and it does seem to work just fine, really no different than with or without it. But I find that that's a little bit more kind of setup intensive, so I kind of reserve the Compex for when I have the time or my assistant has the time to set an athlete up on the stim device. So kind of moving right along, I think another pro for the Marc Pro, and this is something that they recently changed. When they originally came out with the first unit, they used to send these safety leads where the pins were actually, I don't know if you could see that, the pins were actually covered with some plastic. So you had to use really specific pads so that they would fit inside, and or you had to order these universal leads separate, which I didn't love. But I do prefer the universal leads because, to be honest with you, I can get quality pads pretty cheap on Amazon through some of my sports medicine distributors. So I like to kind of choose my own pads. I really like I'd rather buy quality pads and have them last a long time because I do give each of my clients their own set. It just keeps, it's cleaner, you know, the athletes like it, my clients like that they have their own set and it's not being shared from person to person. The pads last a lot longer. So that's kind of one of the reasons I like these universal leads. But now with the newer units, I'm finding that they just send you the universal leads, and they also have commercial leads that are a lot more robust in terms of the gauge of wire, which has been nice. I have had an issue in the past where these kind of connections down here start to get really kind of crummy, and then you start to lose the connection to the machine and you have to buy a new set of leads, which I didn't really love about these units. But I think Marc Pro has already started to begin to address that with some of the newer models. So I haven't had that problem yet with my Marc Pro Plus. I've only had it for a few months. I have 2 other original Marc Pro units that I use a lot. On that end, I think that's a con for the Compex. I love that it has 4 leads, which is great. The old units used to have the universal pins, but now they don't anymore. They all come with these snap leads, okay, which means that you have to buy Compex pads. Smart from a business perspective, but you're definitely going to spend more money getting these snap pads. The other thing that I don't like about these is that they don't really last. If you're using it for private use, for your own use, then by all means, these things will work great, and you'll definitely get some decent pad life out of them so long as you take care of them. But what I have found, 2 things happen. Either the snap rips off the pad, or you pull the little kind of silver electrode out of this little plastic housing, and the wire, the soldered wire behind this is really kind of cheesy, and it kind of breaks real easy. So if you pull this little plastic, you know, female recession piece out of the red housing or the black housing, you're very, very likely to damage the soldered connection there. I have 2 Compex edges that I bought in January, and I've been using them fairly regularly. Haven't had that issue yet because I'm mostly the person that uses these. So when I snap them on, I make sure that I grab it really close and kind of really get my fingers in there and kind of separate it out kind of nice. Otherwise, you just kind of rip the buttons right off the pads and then they're garbage. I did used to work at a physical therapy clinic that we had a lot of the older Compex units with the snap leads, and we just ran through leads like crazy. You know, these things kind of broke out real easy. So I haven't had that problem yet with mine, but I'm kind of just, I'm figuring it's only a matter of time before I do have that issue with these. So I don't like the snap leads. I'm not a huge fan. I have seen people on Amazon reviewing them and saying that you can buy generic ones with the snap leads, that they're universal, but you know, I don't want to order pads and then all of a sudden they don't work. I got to send them back. That's just a pain in the ass. So I just kind of stick with the Compex pads. You know, they do send you a few sets with each order. Moving on to kind of the last pros for each of these units, let's talk about price, okay? So the Compex is the lowest price point for this Edge unit, which is their base model. To be honest with you, they have some, the upper models have a lot of other settings. They have a wireless model. You can spend up to over $1,000 on one of these if you wanted to. I don't think that that's necessary. I'm really happy with my base models. Like I said, I use really primarily the recovery setting and the resistance setting for neuromuscular reeducation. And this comes in at $279. Comes with the leads, comes with some pads. Actually, when I ordered mine, they even sent me a bunch of these Flu War wipes with it too, which are like the benzoclonium chloride wipes, which was like a nice little added gift. They sent me like 4 or 5 of these, which is really cool. And if you do wait and you look, you can definitely find, you know, Compex will frequently do like discounted deals off these units if you just are patient, you wait and you watch for the price to drop. So $279 for the base unit, really affordable. You know, so if you're not looking to spend a lot, I definitely recommend the Compex unit. Just know that you're gonna have, you know, maybe some pad issues and some lead issues down the line. The Marc Pro, you know, I'm not really sure, again, on the Compex, the other ones, I know they range from $279 to over $1,000. So you got to check that out online, compexusa.com. So going on to the Marc Pro units come in at $650 for the base model and $950 respectively for the Plus model, which has that high frequency pain setting on them. Other than that, they're exactly the same. 2 leads on both. They come with the universal leads. These also come with the carrying case. I think it's 4 or 6 sets of pads, I forget. The booklet with all the, you know, the pad placement guide. You know, obviously their website's pretty cool too with pad placements. The cool thing about the Marc Pro though is they do have a payment plan option. So you can definitely go on there and do like, you know, a 1-year payment plan, no interest, where you pay this thing off a little bit at a time. I also am an affiliate of Marc Pro, so if you are interested in purchasing one of these, you can use the coupon code AMPATHLETE, all one word, AMPATHLETE, and you'll get 5% off, okay? Which isn't a bunch, but, you know, on this it's about 45, 50 bucks. And on this, it's closer to $100 off. So, you know, you're looking at a decent amount of money, you know, to save on these. You won't find these coming on sale. I've been, you know, following Marc Pro. I've been using them. Honestly, I bought one of these when they first came out. because I was really interested in the concept behind it, and I have not seen them go on sale, not once. So the price on these is going to be pretty firm. So if you're interested in one of these, though, they do have those flexible payment options, which is great. I ended up paying mine for over 6 months, and then in month 7, I just kind of wiped out the rest, and they were really cool about it. So, you know, the customer support on the Marc Pro has been great. I haven't really had to do any customer support with the Compex yet, so I can't really speak to their customer service. But customer service on the Marc Pro end, pretty good. Overall, fairly happy with you know, with the response, and you know, they've sent me marketing materials and stickers and all sorts of cool little stuff that I can give away to my athletes, which they really like. You know, so that's it, guys. I mean, I pretty much think I covered most of it, or all of what I wanted to cover with you guys, and you know, comparing and contrasting these two different units. I really like both of them is my final verdict. I like them for different reasons. Like I said, neuromuscular re-education is my go-to for the Compex, and if I'm really having to do, you know, a lot of areas at once, I'll go to the Active Recovery on the Compex versus the Marc Pro. For the Marc Pro, like I said, it's not necessarily indicated for use on, you know, injuries and stuff, but I'll tell you, I get really great results using this. You know, my post-op ACLs even, you know, I'll throw this on a quad and really help flush some of that swelling out and just keep those fast twitch fibers active, okay? You know, not that this will delay atrophy on any level or reduce inflammation on any level, but that's really not what we're trying to do, right, guys? We're not really trying to do that. We're just trying to augment what the body's already doing, okay? And that's another misconception with these stim units, is that they accelerate healing, or they're gonna make you heal better or faster or whatever it's gonna be. They don't. Okay, your body knows what to do. We've evolved this way for a reason. Our bodies are very good at taking care of the healing process, but I do think these little units are great ways to augment or just kind of give our body that little bit of help that it might need, okay? Especially when you're dealing with chronic swelling and things like that. These things can be very effective. I would say anecdotally again that I think the Marc Pro kind of beats the Compex out in terms of delayed onset muscle soreness, or helping to prevent or mitigate delayed onset muscle soreness. I definitely think the Marc Pro probably wins in that category over the Active Recovery setting, and in comfort as well. I think the comfort level on this is great. You know, like I said, you barely feel that tingling or the kind of like pinchy stim feeling. You know, these are not the same type of electrical stimulation that you would get at like your classic physical therapy office or chiropractic office. You know, these are not like clinical commercial models. These are over the counter, which is again another pro for both of them. I like that you can buy these. You don't need a prescription. If you're a really active athlete, an endurance athlete, CrossFit athlete, bodybuilder, power lifter, baseball player, any field sport really, I like that they're portable. The battery life on both is fantastic. You know, so overall, both really good units. I definitely highly recommend them. So you can check out Marc Pro at www.marcpro.com. You can also check out the Compex at compexusa.com. You know, obviously there's a lot more information on their respective websites as to each individual unit. But like I said, I'm a fan of both. I don't think they're end-all be-all treatments by any means, but you know, after I'm doing my manual therapy with somebody, they're both a nice little feel-good thing that I can have a client do for 10 or 15 minutes as kind of like a cool down or a finisher after they do their corrective exercises. So definitely a fan of both. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the YouTube channel. I'll definitely get back to you on those. If you have anything specific that you'd like me to cover, if you like what you see, please subscribe. I'm gonna get back to doing some more of my manual therapy videos. I have a bodybuilding client, pro bodybuilder, coming in, so we're gonna do some muscle expansion work with him, which is gonna be awesome. That'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. But I'm also gonna start to do some more of these like product reviews, comparison, contrast, especially on like the sports medicine, recovery, training end of things. We'll start to do some more of those videos, help you guys out, make some of these decisions on your own in terms of buying your own units. But thanks for coming to visit me in the Recovery Lab. Really appreciate you coming down, and we will catch you guys next time. Take care.